On the day my husband married his second wife, the Lin estate blazed with crimson lanterns and silk ribbons. Everywhere I turned, red assaulted my vision. He stood in his finest traditional robes looking devastatingly handsome. Yet that smile, that warmth in his eyes, belonged only to the delicate woman in white beside him. I, the first wife, sat in plain clothing in the seat meant for family, nothing more than an audience member watching my own humiliation unfold. My mother-in-law's voice cut through my thoughts. Remember your place, Yangqing. You must be gracious. My husband Linhao didn't spare me a glance, turning instead to his bride. Shall we begin? The new bride nodded demurely while the matchmaker prepared to sing the wedding blessings. The room full of guests waited with barely concealed anticipation, eager to witness my fall from grace, to see how the lady of the manor would be reduced to sharing her husband. Just as the bride was about to bow, a sharp voice shattered the festive atmosphere from outside the gates. The imperial decree has arrived. In that instant, Linhao's smile vanished. The chattering crowd fell silent. I slowly raised my head, looked at that official gold-embossed scroll, and finally allowed myself a genuine smile. Linhao, did you think today would be my most humiliating moment? Actually, today marks the beginning of your family's destruction. The red throughout the hall suddenly looked like blood. The air hung heavy with expensive perfume and wine, and a celebration built on hypocrisy. My husband, the Marquis of Yong and Linhao, held his sweetheart Tang Rui's hand, preparing to perform the wedding ceremony. He didn't look at me. Ever since Tang Rui became pregnant, he hasn't looked me in the eye once. He said, Yangqing, I know this hurts you, but Rui carries my child. I cannot let her remain without proper status. He also said, don't worry, you will always be the lady of this manor. No one can take your place. Every sentence was meant to comfort, yet every word cut like a blade. I sat upright in the seat of honor, dressed in pale moonlight silk, completely out of place amid the hall filled with festive red. My mother-in-law, Madame Zhu, sat beside me and lowered her voice, her tone dripping with warning. Yangqing, today is a joyous day for your husband and the Lin family. Wipe that look of mourning off your face and smile. I didn't smile. I just calmly watched the perfect couple before me. Linhao, the capital's famous young general, heroic and celebrated. Tang Rui, the woman he called his savior, fragile as a willow and heartbreakingly delicate. What a perfect match. And I, Bai Yan Qing, having married into the manor 3 years ago without bearing a child, had become his excuse to continue the family line and the obstacle to him marrying his true love. First bow to heaven and earth. The matchmaker's high-pitched voice rang out. Linhao and Tang Rui turned around and bowed gracefully toward the altar. The guests' gazes, however, drifted toward me. There was sympathy and pity, but mostly anticipation and curiosity about watching a spectacle. They were all waiting to see how I, the lady everyone used to envy, would swallow this complete humiliation. Second bow to the elders. They turned around facing me and my mother-in-law. Linhao still didn't look at me. His gaze held impatience and urgency, as if saying, why don't you hurry up and accept this bow so I can have my happiness? Tang Rui's eyes and expression, meanwhile, held barely concealed smugness. Her slightly rounded belly was her greatest weapon and also the most silent mockery toward me. I picked up the tea beside me and blew on it gently. The tea leaves floated in the water just like my life in the manor these past 3 years. Seeing that I didn't move, my mother-in-law coughed heavily. Linhao finally frowned and looked at me. Yangqing, don't miss the auspicious hour. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried a commanding tone. I put down the teacup, and just when everyone thought I would accept this ugly affair, the announcement came. The Imperial decree has arrived. A sharp voice exploded from outside the manor gates like a thunderclap. These words carried power that seemed to penetrate everything, instantly shattering all sounds in the wedding hall. The music stopped. The laughter and conversation died down. The matchmaker's chant got stuck in her throat. Linhao and Tang Rui, whose bodies were just about to bow down, suddenly froze. The guests filling the hall had their expressions freeze on their faces. It was the absurdity of plunging from ultimate celebration into ultimate shock. I, however, amid this dead silence, slowly rose to my feet. It is here. It is finally here. The opportunity I've waited 3 years for has arrived exactly when I needed it most, just as promised. In full view of everyone, an official clad in a sapphire blue ceremonial robe, holding a bright yellow imperial scroll in his hands, walked in majestically under the escort of imperial guards. Leading them was the emperor's chief official, Director Wu. He was the most trusted person by the emperor's side. The moment Director Wu stepped through the door, his sharp eyes swept across the room, finally landing on Linhao. Linhao's face went deathly pale. He hurriedly pulled Tang Rui down to kneel, his voice trembling. Your subject, Linhao, the Marquis of Yangqing, receives the decree. Everyone in the manor, along with the hall full of guests, dropped to their knees in a wave. Only I remained standing. Director Wu's gaze turned toward me, and on that face known for its sternness, a hint of a gentle smile actually appeared as he nodded slightly. This subtle gesture caused Linhao, who was kneeling on the ground, to feel his heart sink like a stone. By the will of heaven, the emperor decrees. Director Wu cleared his throat and unfurled the imperial scroll, his unique commanding voice resounding throughout the wedding hall. Bai Yan Qing, daughter of the Bai family from a scholarly background, virtuous, eloquent, graceful and capable, gentle and dignified. 3 years ago, she rendered great service to the country and grace to the state. I am deeply gratified. The first sentence didn't mention the manor but directly pointed out my name, and it was daughter of the Bai family, not wife of the Lin family. A slight commotion stirred among the crowd kneeling on the ground. Linhao's body gave an uncontrollable shudder. Service to the country, grace to the state. He suddenly looked up at me, his eyes filled with disbelief and confusion. We've been married for 3 years, yet he actually didn't know I had such a past. I just looked back at him coldly. There is still plenty you don't know. Director Wu's voice continued, but his tone suddenly turned cold, carrying a chilling edge. Marquis Yangqing Linhao, as a noble of the court, you partake of the emperor's favor and ought to serve with loyalty, setting an example for all officials. Yet you are careless in managing your household and lacking in virtue. You favor a concubine and neglect your wife, disregarding human ethics and propriety. You are truly a shame to the court and a disgrace to the nobility. Such conduct betrays our grace and is an even greater insult to the virtuous Bai family. Every word cut like a knife, every sentence lashed like a whip. The phrase favoring a concubine over a wife was like a resounding slap in the face, striking viciously across the faces of Linhao and the entire manor. The wedding hall, beaming with festivity just moments ago, had now turned into a tribunal. Linhao's head was buried deep. He wished he could find a crack in the ground to crawl into. Beside him, Tang Rui was so scared her beautiful face drained of color, her body swaying on the verge of collapse. My mother-in-law Madame Zhu was already pale, her lips trembling, unable to squeeze out a single word. The imperial decree continued. In consideration of the Bai family's virtue, we cannot bear to see their precious daughter covered in dust, suffering such injustice. We specially grant the daughter of the Bai family, Bai Yan Qing, a divorce from the Marquis of Yangqing Linhao. From now on, the marriage is ended, and each shall have nothing to do with the other. Divorce, and it was a divorce sanctioned by imperial decree. This wasn't something I begged for, but a grace bestowed by the imperial family. At this, the guests filling the hall could no longer hold back, gasping in shock. Their gazes upon me shifted from sympathy and curiosity to shock and awe. Linhao's body swayed heavily. If not for propping himself up on the ground with his hands, he would have collapsed. He thought he was in control of everything. He thought he was being generous by letting me keep my position. Little did he know that in the face of true power, that little bit of prestige from his manor was as laughable as a joke. However, this was not the end yet. To honor her virtue and comfort her heart, we specially invest Bai Yan Qing as County Princess Mingzhu with lands of 800 households. We bestow upon her the Lotus Garden Villa in the capital suburbs, 10,000 taels of gold, 1,000 bolts of brocade, 1,000 mu of fertile land, 10 imperially granted guards, and 4 palace maids. Respect this, County Princess Mingzhu. I, Bai Yan Qing, Went from a lady about to be overshadowed by an equal wife to instantly becoming an imperially decreed county princess with a title and lands. This wasn't just a simple divorce anymore. This was compensation from the highest power, a supreme and peerless honor. Director Wu paused, slowly closing the imperial scroll, his gaze like lightning shooting toward Linhao, who was already terrified. As for the Marquis of Yong and Linhao, he deliberately dragged out his voice. Every word was like a heavy hammer, striking the death knell of the Lin family. Incompetent in household management, morally lacking, effective immediately. Your title is demoted one rank from Marquis to Earl. Your salary is reduced and you are confined behind closed doors to reflect on your misdeeds for 1 month as a warning to others. His mother Madame Zhu has failed to teach her son, indulged his wrongdoing, and her conduct has been disgraceful. Effective immediately, she is stripped of her title as a titled lady and demoted to a commoner. Linhao's mind went blank, and his whole body went limp as he collapsed to the ground. Demotion. The title that the Lin family had fought for over generations had been reduced to an earldom, all because of his absurd marriage. And his mother, from a glorious titled lady, had reverted to a commoner overnight. This was worse than killing them. When my mother-in-law Zhu heard the words demoted to commoner, her eyes rolled back and she fainted. And what about Tang Rui, whom Linhao had been protecting from beginning to end? The imperial decree didn't mention a single word about her. This was the ultimate humiliation. You schemed so hard to get status, but in the eyes of the imperial family, you don't even have the qualification to be mentioned. You are nothing but something unworthy of attention. County Princess Mingzhu, please accept the decree. Director Wu's voice pulled me back from my thoughts. He held the imperial scroll with both hands and respectfully presented it before me. That attitude, as if I were not an abandoned woman who had just divorced, but a true imperial noble. I took a deep breath, suppressed the emotions in my heart, stepped forward gracefully, and knelt down properly. Your subject, Bai Yan Qing, thanks your majesty for this great grace. Long live my emperor. Long live, long live. I didn't use guilty woman, nor did I use commoner, but instead used female subject. A difference of one word, yet a world apart. From this moment on, I am no longer anyone's wife. I am simply the emperor's subject, the county princess under the protection of the imperial family. County princess, please rise quickly. This simply won't do. Director Wu hurriedly stepped forward himself to help me up, his face full of smiles. The Empress Dowager still mentions you often in the palace, saying your health is delicate and that you should take good care of yourself. This seemingly casual remark once again stirred up a storm among the crowd. The Empress Dowager and Bai Yan Qing actually have a connection to the Empress Dowager. Linhao, kneeling on the ground, suddenly looked up. Those eyes that were once filled with affection now held nothing but endless shock and unfamiliarity. He looked at me like he was looking at a stranger. As if after 3 years of sharing a bed, he had never known me at all. Yes, of course you don't. You only know the Yangqing who cooked for you, managed the manor for you, was dutiful to your mother for you, and meekly accepted everything. Did you ever think that I, Yangqing, also have my own backbone and advantages? I smiled faintly at Director Wu, my manner composed. Thank you for your concern, Director Wu, and please convey my regards to the Empress Dowager. Once I have settled in, I will certainly enter the palace to pay my respects. It is only right. It is only right. Director Wu smiled until his eyes narrowed. He turned around to look at Linhao, who was still collapsed on the ground. The smile on his face vanished instantly, replaced by a look of cold disdain. Lord Lin, the imperial decree has been proclaimed. Still not giving thanks for the grace. Linhao's body trembled violently. He struggled, wanting to stand up, but was completely powerless. What he lost was not just a title or a wife. What he lost was the future of his entire family, his bright prospects. He finally understood at this moment that the favor backing me was protection that no amount of war achievements he earned could ever trade for. And he, with his own hands, smashed this protection along with my heart to pieces. Your subject Linhao thanks your majesty for this great grace. Every single word seemed like it was squeezed out from between his teeth, filled with bitterness and remorse. Tang Rui was at the side already weeping helplessly. She wanted to go support Linhao but didn't dare, so she could only kneel there helplessly, like a withered willow ravaged by a violent storm. She was supposed to be the most glorious bride in the room, but now she had become the biggest joke in the entire capital with no status and no future. She had even dragged her beloved's family down to this point. I looked at them yet felt not a shred of satisfaction in my heart, only cold indifference. They chose this path themselves. I simply took back the dignity that was rightfully mine. All right, my job here is done. Director Wu waved his hand. County Princess Mingzhu, please. The villa His Majesty bestowed has been cleaned, and the staff and palace maids sent from the palace are all waiting there. Thank you for your trouble, Director Wu. I nodded slightly. I turned around, not sparing another glance at Linhao, and walked out. My personal maid, Xiao Yu, had long since become tearful. She followed excitedly behind me as if walking out of a prison. Yangqing. From behind came Linhao's hoarse call, carrying a trace of pleading. I didn't stop walking. Yangqing, stop right there. Seeing I remained unmoved, his voice became shrill. Did you plan all of this from the start? Did you marry me just for today? You used me. I finally stopped walking and slowly turned around. I looked at his face twisted with anger and unwillingness and suddenly found it a bit ridiculous. Linhao, I spoke softly, my voice not loud, yet it clearly carried through the entire dead silent wedding hall. I never plotted against you 3 years ago. I sincerely wanted to grow old with you and be a good wife. I managed the household for you, served your mother, washed the blood from your battle robes, and smoothed the worry from your brow. I thought a true heart would be met with a true heart. My gaze swept over him, over the trembling Tang Rui beside him, and finally landed on that glaring happiness character. But what did you give me in return? It was lies, neglect, and this massive humiliation today. For the sake of your so-called true love, you trampled my dignity underfoot. Did you think that I, Yangqing, couldn't survive if I left your manor? I smiled, a smile light as the breeze, yet carrying endless mockery. You are wrong. It is not that I have nowhere to go. I just wanted to give you a chance. Now that chance is gone. Linhao, all ties between us are ended. From now on, you are your fallen earl, and I am my county princess. You take your broad road, and I'll cross my bridge. No, I misspoke. The path I walk is the road to the heavens, and you will fall into endless darkness. After saying that, I didn't stay any longer and walked out of the manor gates without looking back. Outside, the sunshine was just right. I narrowed my eyes and took a deep breath of the air of freedom. A new life has begun. The carriage slowly drove toward the outskirts of the city. Inside, Xiao Yu was still sobbing softly, tears of joy. No, County Princess, we finally made it through. You don't have to put up with that mother and son's treatment anymore. I handed her a handkerchief, my heart also filled with 1,000 emotions. Yes, we finally made it through. My thoughts couldn't help but drift back to 3 years ago. Back then, I was still unmarried, the legitimate eldest daughter of the Bai family, the Vice Minister of Personnel. My maternal grandfather's family were once renowned healers and he himself was the head of the Imperial Medical Institute before retiring to his hometown. I grew up following him, learning the medical arts and was particularly skilled at creating remedies to strengthen the body. In the winter 3 years ago, the Empress Dowager's old illness returned and her high fever wouldn't break. The imperial physicians were helpless and the entire court was shaken. Father was worried sick and mentioned this at home. I suddenly remembered an ancient formula my grandfather had left behind specifically for treating such severe lingering illnesses. At the time I didn't think much of it. I just felt that as a subject I ought to help the sovereign. So I spent 7 days of hard work and used incredibly rare herbs to create 3 precious healing pills. I gave the pills to father to secretly present, adding a note that this formula was extremely powerful and not to be used unless it was a matter of life and death, and that only I could manage the medicine's effects. My intention was merely to offer a remedy to save a life, seeking nothing in return. Who knew that the remedy would actually work wonders? An hour after the Empress Dowager took it, her high fever broke, and 3 days later she could get out of bed and walk. The emperor was overjoyed. The emperor secretly summoned my father to heavily reward the Bai family. Father was terrified, saying his humble daughter was just doing her duty and dared not claim credit. Later, the emperor personally summoned me. That was my first time seeing the emperor's face. In the Imperial study, I saw the reigning emperor and the Empress Dowager, who had just recovered. The Empress Dowager held my hand, tears in her eyes, saying I was her savior. The emperor then asked me what reward I wanted. Gold, silver and jewels, high office and generous salary, anything was available. Back then, I was already engaged to Linhao. He was the young hero everyone in the capital admired, and I was his promised wife. As a young girl, my feelings were always idealistic. I adored his heroism and looked forward to a future of harmony. I feared that if the rewards were too grand, he would feel I was outshining him and harbor resentment. So I knelt down and said to the emperor and the Empress Dowager, I dare not ask for a reward. I only ask that the emperor and the Empress Dowager remember my service today. If in the future I am in trouble and suffer a great injustice, when I seek justice, I hope your majesty will remember today's favor and uphold justice for me. The emperor took a deep look at me, his gaze thoughtful. Finally, he nodded. Very well, I grant it. I bestow upon you a jade pendant. Seeing the pendant is like seeing me. In the future, if you have a request, bring this pendant into the palace, and no matter what it is, I will set things right for you. The Empress Dowager went even further, slipping a string of phoenix jade bracelets off her own wrist and putting them on my hand. Good child, I also acknowledge this favor of yours. Inside and outside this capital, whoever dares to make you suffer an injustice is crossing me. This was my advantage, my protection. An advantage I thought I would never use. After marrying into the manor, I locked the pendant and the bracelet at the bottom of a chest, setting my heart solely on being the lady. I thought my husband would be my support. I thought that as long as I was virtuous enough, patient enough, I could earn his respect and care. But I was wrong. When he appeared in front of me with the pregnant Tang Rui, using that matter-of-fact tone to demand I accept her as an equal wife, my heart just died. It turned out 3 years of dedication ultimately couldn't compare to that little bit of so-called true love in his heart. It turned out my virtue and propriety were, in his eyes, just something he took for granted. That night, I didn't sleep a wink. At daybreak, I opened that long-sealed chest. I looked at that jade pendant representing the Emperor's promise, looked at that string of phoenix jade bracelets representing the Empress Dowager's protection, and tears fell like rain. I didn't want to come to this, but they left me no way out. In that case, don't blame me for tearing this false piece to shreds with my own hands. I had someone secretly send the jade pendant into the palace with just a single sentence attached. The day the equal wife crosses the threshold is the time the imperial decree grants a divorce. I made no demands, nor did I voice any complaints. I believed that with his wisdom as the emperor, he would give me the fairest and most dignified ending. He didn't let me down. In fact, he did even better than I imagined. County Princess, we've arrived. Xiao Yu's voice interrupted my memories. The carriage stopped and the curtain was lifted. A magnificent estate appeared before my eyes. Red gates, a plaque with gold lettering bearing 3 large characters in bold, elegant calligraphy. County Princess Manor. It wasn't just a villa, but a manor bestowed directly. The Emperor's grace is vast to such an extent. I took a deep breath and, supported by a palace maid, stepped down from the carriage. I, County Princess Mingzhu, Bai Yan Qing, from today on, I live only for myself. As I stepped into the County Princess Manor to start my new life, the former Marquis of Yong'an's manor, now the Earl of Yenan's manor, was suffering a devastating blow. The following is what I heard afterwards. After Director Wu left with the Imperial guards, the hall full of guests scattered like frightened birds, fearing they couldn't get away fast enough. In less than the time it takes to burn incense, the wedding hall that had just been packed with distinguished guests was left with only the Lin family and a floor full of mess. That bright red happiness character, looking at it now, seemed like a huge mockery. Tang Rui knelt on the ground, crying until she almost fainted. She grabbed the hem of Linhao's clothes. Brother Hao, what do we do? It is all my fault. I am the one who ruined you. Linhao flung her aside, his eyes bloodshot, looking like a madman. Get lost. All of you get lost. He was like a trapped beast rampaging through the wedding hall, overturning tables and chairs and tearing those festive decorations to shreds. He couldn't figure it out. He just couldn't figure it out no matter what. How could that wife who in his eyes was gentle, patient, and even a bit timid suddenly turn into the powerful County Princess Mingzhu? That woman he thought he could control at will actually had the emperor and the empress dowager backing her. He felt like a complete fool. A fool who threw away a rare priceless pearl just to pick up a worthless stone from the ground. Madame Zhu slowly came to, and as soon as she opened her eyes, what she saw was this scene of devastation. She had lost her title. Her son had been demoted, and the Lin family's century of honor was destroyed in one fell swoop. She let out a blood-curdling scream and lunged at the weeping Tang Rui. It is all your fault. You are the one who ruined our Lin family. She beat and cursed at Tang Rui, venting all her resentment and despair on this future daughter-in-law she once loved so much. Tang Rui was already pregnant, so how could she withstand such a beating? Soon she suffered unbearable abdominal pain and started bleeding. Inside the Earl's residence, cries, shouts, and curses instantly turned into a chaotic mess. And at this moment, the servants I sent to collect my belongings also arrived. I left cleanly, taking only Xiao Yu with me. But when I married into the manor with a grand procession, my dowry was substantial. Those are all my Bai family's things. I won't leave a single item to them. My head steward is a shrewd and capable woman. She took my dowry list, led some people, and marched straight into my courtyard. Linhao rushed over and blocked the way. What are you doing? Who gave you permission to move anything? The head steward bowed, neither humble nor arrogant. Replying to the Earl, this servant is here on the orders of County Princess Mingzhu to retrieve the County Princess's dowry. Every item on this list belongs to the Bai family and has nothing to do with the Lin family. Linhao looked at that long list, trembling all over with anger. She is gone, yet she still wants to clear everything out. Is she really that heartless? The head steward said calmly, "You are joking, my lord. The County Princess has already divorced you. Naturally, she must take her things with her. This isn't called heartless. This is called being fair. I won't allow it." Linhao roared. "My lord, you cannot stop this." The head steward looked up, staring straight at him. The Imperial decree states clearly that the County Princess has rendered great service to the state and is under the protection of His Majesty and the Empress Dowager. If you dare touch a single thread belonging to the County Princess today, tomorrow, the officials will drown your earldom in complaints. Linhao froze. That is right. He was no longer that Marquis of Yangqing who held great power. He was just a fallen earl disliked by His Majesty. He no longer had the right to say no to me. He could only watch helplessly as my servants took everything in my courtyard that belonged to me, moving them out one by one, from as big as the carved wooden bed to as small as a pearl hairpin. Not a single item was left behind. Finally, when a servant carried out a locked wooden chest, Linhao suddenly rushed forward. "You can't take this." The head steward frowned. "My lord, this also belongs to our young miss. This is what I gave her." Linhao hugged the chest tightly, as if clutching the last straw. "Inside here are the gifts I brought back for her every time I returned from a campaign. She said she kept them all. This is our only keepsake." The head steward paused for a moment, looking back at the trusted aide I had sent. The trusted aide had received my instructions, stepped forward, and said coldly, "Earl Lin, the County Princess said that she has made a clean break with her past with you. As for these so-called keepsakes, she finds them unworthy." With that, she took a key from her sleeve and opened the chest right in front of Linhao. Inside the chest, it wasn't gifts at all. Instead, it was a thick stack of account books. Every single one clearly recorded just how much of the manor's expenses I covered with my dowry in the 3 years since I married in. From daily expenses to social obligations, and even Linhao's gifts to his colleagues and rewards to his subordinates, entry by entry, it was shocking. Linhao looked at those account books, completely stunned. He had always thought the manor was a grand and wealthy estate with no worries about expenses. He never thought that he could live so comfortably and honorably because I was behind him using my dowry to silently support everything. The trusted aide took the account books away, then right in front of his face threw that empty chest along with the key onto the ground. The county princess said that regarding what Earl Lin owes her, she will let bygones be bygones. She only asks that from now on, you never cross paths again, and each lives well. After saying this, the group walked away. Linhao stood blankly in the empty courtyard, looking at that discarded box, until finally covering his face and letting out a sound like a wounded animal. Just what was it that he had lost? Inside the County Princess Manor, it was as warm as spring. Steward Liu, sent from the palace, was a female official in her 40s. She was experienced in her ways and spoke with tact. She led the servants of the manor to bow and pay their respects to me. This servant pays respects to the county princess. May the county princess enjoy blessings and peace. You may all rise. I sat in the seat of honor, my voice steady. From now on, we are all one family. I don't have many rules here. Only one thing matters: loyalty. With loyalty, there is a future. Your servants obey. Everyone responded in unison, their voices filled with respect. Steward Liu presented the records of the residence and the keys to the treasury. The gold and silks bestowed by His Majesty have also been entered into the treasury. Please have a look. I opened it to take a look. The royal family's generosity was indeed extraordinary. This residence, 3 courtyards deep, with pavilions and gardens, offering a beautiful view with every step, was actually even grander than the manor. In the treasury, gleaming gold was stacked neatly, and the various rare silks were dazzling to the eyes. This overwhelming wealth was enough to drive any woman to excitement. But in my heart there was only peace. These were nothing but material possessions. What I truly gained was freedom, dignity, and the chance to start life anew. Is everything settled properly? I asked. Replying to the county princess, everything is settled. It is just, Steward Liu hesitated slightly. It is just that outside, someone from the Earl of Yannan's manor handed over a visiting card, saying that Earl Yannan begs to see the county princess. My hand holding the teacup paused. Linhao, he still has the nerve to come see me. Won't see. I said the 2 words indifferently. Tell them this county princess is unwell and needs quiet rest. No one is to disturb me. From now on, there is no need to bring in any invitations from the Earl's manor. Yes. Steward Liu immediately agreed. Xiao Yu was at the side snorting with satisfaction. He still has the nerve to come. Truly shameless. I smiled and didn't say another word. I wasn't surprised at all that Linhao would come. He didn't regret it. He just couldn't let it go. He wasn't willing to accept that the wealth and glory within his grasp just flew away like that. What he wanted to win back wasn't me, but the imperial favor I represented. Too bad it was too late. There is a remedy for everything in this world, except for regret. The next few days were incredibly pleasant for me. I didn't have to get up early to pay respects to my mother-in-law anymore or listen to her critical remarks. I didn't have to try hard to figure out my husband's moods anymore. I no longer have to face book after book of accounts, calculating how to use my dowry to fill that bottomless pit of the manor. I sleep until I wake up naturally every day, admire flowers and sip tea in the garden, or take out long-neglected books and read quietly for an afternoon. Occasionally, I'll also bring out the medical books my maternal grandfather left me and re-examine those clever formulas. Steward Liu keeps the household running in perfect order. I don't have to worry about a thing. The 4 palace maids sent from the palace were efficient and attentive, taking care of me with careful detail. I even felt that my complexion was much better than when I was at the manor. That afternoon, I was reading by the window when Xiao Yu ran in excitedly. County Princess, have you heard? What is all the excitement about? I put down my book. It is the Earl of Yannan's manor. Xiao Yu said, beaming. I heard that after you left that day, that Tang Rui had a miscarriage. It was a male child that hadn't even formed yet. I felt no emotion in my heart. That was the product of a doomed relationship to begin with. That it couldn't be kept was also destined by fate. And then that Jew woman blamed everything on Tang Rui, scolding her every day. Tang Rui couldn't take it, and the night before last, she took her own life. I frowned slightly. A human life gone just like that. And what about Linhao? Him? Xiao Yu's tone was filled with disdain. He drinks all day long, acts like a complete waste. Yesterday at court, he was still drunk and offended an imperial censor. His Majesty found out, issued a reprimand, and docked half a year of his salary. The Earl's manor has become the laughingstock of the entire capital. Now everyone says Linhao was blind to throw away a treasure like you for the sake of bad luck. He deserves to end up like this. Xiao Yu spoke with satisfaction, but I just sighed. If he had known it would come to this, why did he do it in the first place? I stood up and walked to the window. The flowering trees in the courtyard had bloomed in clusters, brilliant as rosy clouds, so beautiful. My life, too, should be like these flowers, blooming anew. The stories about the Earl of Yannan's manor were still spreading. In the tea houses and taverns of the capital, the storytellers have already turned the tale of the divorce into their latest routine. Things like General mad with love, demoted to Earl on his wedding day. Things like the white moonlight was actually a death sentence. The titled mother becomes a commoner overnight. Every story had the whole room roaring with laughter. Linhao and the Lin family had completely become fodder for gossip among the commoners of the capital. His official career, just as expected, had also come to an end. After his demotion, his original position as vice minister in the Ministry of War was taken over by a newly promoted military officer. His colleagues in the court avoided him like the plague. Everyone knew that offending County Princess Mingzhu was the same as offending the Empress Dowager and His Majesty. Who would still dare to associate with him? In less than half a month, Linhao was transferred to a powerless government office, becoming an insignificant, idle official. From a promising young general to a fallen earl despised by all, it took him only the duration of a single wedding. And for his mother, Madame Zhu, life was even harder. Without her titled status, she could no longer hold her head high in her former circle of noble ladies. When she went out, people pointed fingers at her. At home, she faced a useless son and the death of an unlucky daughter-in-law. It is said that overnight half her hair turned white and she aged more than 10 years. As for that tragic Tang Rui, her death didn't stir up even the slightest ripple in the capital. A woman with no title or status, if she is dead, she is dead. People even said she got what she deserved. If it weren't for her, why would the Lin family have ended up like this? This is reality. The winner becomes king, the loser becomes nothing. It has always been this way. Listening to the news coming in from outside, I felt absolutely nothing in my heart. I didn't deliberately try to harm them. It was their own actions that pushed them into the pit. That day, the Empress Dowager sent someone with an oral decree summoning me into the palace. I changed into a palace dress that was elegant yet dignified, put on the phoenix jade bracelet bestowed by the Empress Dowager, and boarded the carriage heading for the palace. The carriage from the County Princess Manor, bearing the insignia granted by the Imperial family, traveled without obstruction all the way and drove straight through the palace gates. Such treatment was something even the usual high-ranking nobles and ministers might not necessarily enjoy. The Imperial guards stationed at the gates all bowed in salute upon seeing my carriage. I knew in my heart that this wasn't just to give me respect but was the Imperial power declaring to the world that County Princess Mingzhu is the person they are protecting. On the same day I entered the palace, Linhao finally made a decision inside his earl's manor. He was going to come and beg me. No, to beg on his knees. The 1-month period of confinement to reflect on his mistakes was up. He could finally step out of the manor gates. During this month he had experienced everything involved in falling from the clouds into the mud. His title demoted, his official post stripped, his mother aged, his lover tragically dead, his family shamed. Waking from dreams at midnight, what he saw was no longer Tang Rui's tender eyes, but my resolute and cold back when I left. He began to frantically recall every little detail of the past 3 years. He remembered that every time he returned from a campaign, no matter how late it was, there was always a light on for him at home and a bowl of hot soup kept warm for him. He remembered that every tear on his battle robe had been stitched up by me carefully, leaving not a single trace. He remembered that whenever mother found fault, it was always me smoothing things over with soft, gentle words. He recalled his dealings in the official circles. Those expensive gifts, he thought they came out of the estate's accounts. But only now did he realize they were all my dowry. I gave everything for the Lin family, yet was taken for granted by him. He possessed something precious, yet only saw the tiny flaws, constantly longing for something ordinary. Now that the ordinary was shattered, and the precious had flown away, he finally came to his senses. Regret, like a poisonous snake, gnawed at his heart day and night. He changed into a set of plain clothes, shaved off his messy beard, making himself look as presentable as possible. Then he arrived outside my County Princess manor. He didn't hand in a visiting card, nor did he call at the gate. He just knelt there, stiff and straight, right in front of the main gate of the County Princess manor. This kneeling immediately attracted a crowd of countless onlookers. The former Marquis of Yangqing, now Earl Yenin, was actually kneeling in front of his former wife's manor gate. What a shocking and scandalous scene this was. The news spread through every street and alley of the capital as if it had grown wings. People flocked in from all directions, pointing fingers at Linhao. Isn't that Earl Yenin? What is he doing kneeling here? What else? Begging County Princess Mingzhu for forgiveness. Obviously. If he knew it would come to this, why did he do it in the first place? He tossed aside such a good, lawful wife, insisting on getting someone else instead. Now he regrets it. Too late. I heard the Empress Dowager is backing County Princess Mingzhu. She is a county princess now, so how could she possibly still fancy a fallen earl like him? Those whispers like needles pierced into Linhao's ears. His face turned red then white. But he didn't get up. He thought, as long as I was willing to see him, as long as I could see his remorse, perhaps there was still a chance. He knelt for 2 hours, 4 hours, from when the sun was high in the sky. The mansion gates, however, remained shut tight. Not a single person came out, as if the people inside were completely unaware of everything happening outside, or rather simply didn't care. Finally, Steward Liu walked out of the mansion. A glimmer of hope ignited in Linhao's eyes. He lifted his head and called out, "Yangqing, is Yangqing willing to see me?" Steward Liu looked down at him from above with no sympathy in her eyes, only cold detachment. "Earl Lin, our county princess entered the palace early this morning and has not returned yet." Linhao froze. Entered the palace. That is right. She is a county princess now. She can enter and leave the palace at will. That was a height he could never hope to reach again. Steward Liu continued, additionally, the county princess left instructions before leaving the estate. She said Earl Lin's remorse is too late and too cheap. She, Bai Yan Qing, never picks up the trash she has thrown away. Affection that comes too late is worth less than grass. Please, Earl Lin, have some self-respect. With that, Steward Liu turned around and went back into the manor, closing the main gate with a loud sound. With that sound, the last shred of hope in Linhao's heart was also shut away. Affection that comes too late is worth less than grass. He chewed on these words over and over again, feeling like his insides were all twisted together. A mouthful of metallic sweetness surged up his throat. He spurted out a mouthful of blood, staining the stone slabs in front of him red. His whole body slumped to the ground like he had no bones. Inside the Compassion Palace, warm incense smoke curled in the air. The Empress Dowager took my hand, had me sit beside her, and looked at me with concern. "Good child, you've lost weight. You've suffered at the Lin families." I shook my head and smiled. It is all in the past now. I am doing very well. Good? What is good about it? The Empress Dowager looked at me with a loving rebuke. I've heard it all. That bunch of people actually dared to treat you like that. Fortunately, you still remembered me and remembered that jade pendant in your hand. Otherwise, how long did you plan to endure it? I lowered my eyes. It was my own poor judgment back then. I don't blame you. The Empress Dowager patted the back of my hand. It was that Linhao who was blind. I wanted to strip him of all rank and demote him to a commoner, but the Emperor said, considering his ancestors had some merit, we should leave him a last bit of dignity. I understood clearly in my heart and felt even more grateful to the emperor and the empress dowager. They not only gave me dignity but also considered the balance of the court. This kindness I will surely remember. Just as we were speaking, a man's voice, gentle as jade, came from outside the hall. Your son pays his respects to mother. I looked toward the sound and saw a young man dressed in black princely robes walking in slowly. His figure was tall and slender, his face handsome, his eyes deep as stars, and his bearing steady, carrying a natural air of nobility. It was Prince Zhao, Yangqing, the current emperor's third son, also the most highly valued yet most low-key prince. He did not participate in any power struggles, focusing entirely on laws and the people's welfare, holding an excellent reputation in the court. I only heard that his nature is reserved and he stays away from women. Though over 20, he surprisingly doesn't even have a single concubine in his manor. Yangqing is here. The Empress Dowager saw him, a loving smile appearing on her face. Come here quickly. Meet County Princess Mingzhu. The Empress Dowager had intended to say something else but changed her words. I hurriedly stood up and bowed to Prince Zhao. Your subject Bai Yan Qing greets your highness, Prince Zhao. Yangqing's gaze fell upon me. In those deep eyes, a trace of almost imperceptible emotion flashed past. He nodded slightly, his voice clear. Princess, please rise. His gaze lacked the looking over and evaluation typical of men, holding only clear respect. This made me feel favorably toward him. You two sit down. The Empress Dowager beckoned with a smile. Prince Zhao and I sat on either side of the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager looked at me, then at Prince Zhao, the smile on her face growing deeper. I called you both here today because I want to play matchmaker. Her words were like a bolt from the blue. I was stunned. Even the always steady Prince Zhao showed a hint of surprise. The Empress Dowager ignored us and continued speaking. Yangqing, you are a good child. That Lin family is not good enough for you. I've thought about it, and among the young men in the entire capital, only this grandson of mine is somewhat worthy of you. She turned to Prince Zhao. Yangqing, you are not young anymore. It is time to start a family. Yangqing is sensible, virtuous, and has shown great grace to the royal family. It would be your blessing to marry her. My heart shook violently and my cheeks instantly turned bright red. I hurriedly stood up. Empress Dowager, this absolutely cannot be. I am of humble background and a divorced woman. How could I possibly be worthy of His Highness Prince Zhao? What divorced woman? The Empress Dowager interrupted me, her tone allowing no argument. That was a divorce sanctioned by imperial decree, a wrong washed away for you by the imperial family, not a stain on you. In my eyes, you are more precious than any noble daughter in this capital. She looked at Prince Zhao and asked, Yangqing, what do you say? I looked at Yangqing nervously. If he showed even a hint of unwillingness, I would immediately refuse this matter. I didn't want to go through another forced marriage. Yangqing's gaze had been resting quietly on me. That gaze was deep and weighty, as if it could see right through a person's heart. After a long moment, he slowly stood up and bowed properly to the Empress Dowager. And then to me, he opened his mouth to speak, his voice steady and firm. I, your grandson, will leave everything to Imperial Grandmother's decision. The character of County Princess Bai Yan Qing is something I admire greatly. I don't know how I walked out of the Compassion Palace. In my mind, Yangqing's words admire greatly kept echoing. My face was burning hot like it was on fire. I thought that my heart had long since been wounded by Linhao and that it could never be stirred again. But facing Prince Zhao's clear and sincere gaze, my dormant heart actually uncontrollably skipped a beat. The next day, news even more explosive than the imperial decree for divorce spread through the entire capital. The emperor issued a decree granting a marriage between Prince Zhao Yangqing and County Princess Mingzhu Bai Yan Qing. The wedding date was set for 1 month from now. This decree was like a giant stone thrown into the already restless lake of the capital, stirring up 1,000 giant waves. Everyone was stunned. A cast-off wife abandoned by the manor, in the blink of an eye, was about to become the incomparably noble Princess Consort Zhao. This was like a fantasy. However, The bright yellow imperial decree was posted right on the notice wall of the imperial city, and every word displayed the resolve of the royal family. The people's initial shock slowly turned into understanding. I told you County Princess Mingzhu was no simple person. To make the Empress Dowager herself come forward, just think of how great a favor that involves. Exactly. What kind of person is His Highness Prince Zhao? He has such high standards. The fact that he agreed means the county princess must have something extraordinary about her. That Lord Lin. He must be regretting it to his very core right now. Lost a lady, and she turned around and became a princess consort. It really is karma. The opinion had completely changed. Those who used to secretly pity me or even mock me now had nothing but awe and envy in their eyes. I, Bai Yan Qing, leaped from being a cast-off wife of a noble house to becoming the object of jealousy for every woman in the capital. My life has turned upside down in just one short month. And as for the one who started it all, Linhao, how did he react when he heard the imperial decree for the marriage? They say he was drinking alone in that small office, drowning his sorrows. When his colleague told him the news, he froze for a long time. Then he laughed, a laugh that looked worse than crying. And as he laughed, tears streamed down his face. He rushed out of the office like a madman, charging toward Prince Zhao's manor regardless of everything. He was going to find Yangqing. He was going to ask him by what right. What gives you the right to take his wife? Yes, even now in his heart, I am still his wife. However, he couldn't even get through the main gate of Prince Zhao's manor. The guards of the prince's manor tossed him out like picking up something light. You insolent fool. How dare you run wild in front of Prince Zhao's manor? He fell pathetically to the ground, staring at that imposing plaque of the prince's mansion, staring at those tightly shut red gates. He finally realized in despair that between him and me, there was already an unbridgeable gap. He could never reach me again. He had lost me forever. In the days that followed, I began to get busy preparing for my second grand wedding. Unlike the first time, this time I wasn't all alone. The Empress Dowager sent the best embroiderers from the palace to rush to make my wedding dress. Various treasures bestowed by the emperor were sent into my county princess manor like flowing water. His Highness Prince Zhao also sent people to bring over some small gifts almost every day. Sometimes it was a pot of orchids he planted by hand, sometimes a book he thought I would like, sometimes just a box of pastries newly made by the cook at his manor. There were no sweet words, yet every gesture revealed thoughtful care. My heart, under this gentle care, was bit by bit melted and filled. I began to look forward to the future shared with him. And Linhao had completely become a useless wreck. He no longer went to the office, shutting himself in his manor all day long with wine as his companion. Seeing him like that, Madame Zhu washed her face with tears every day but could do nothing about it. This family had already fallen apart. 3 days before my grand wedding, according to the rules, the palace would send a teaching official to explain royal etiquette to me. That day outside my county princess manor, however, something happened that was neither big nor small. Linhao came again. He was completely drunk, his clothes disheveled, pounding on my manor gate like a madman. Yangqing, Bai Yan Qing, come out. Come out and see me. You can't marry him. You are my wife. You will always be my wife. Come back with me. I was wrong. I was really wrong. I even destroyed Tang Rui's memorial tablet. I'll only have you from now on, Yangqing. He roared and cried, making a complete spectacle of himself, attracting the surrounding commoners to gather around in a circle again. Only this time, the amusement of watching a show was gone from everyone's eyes, leaving only disdain and disgust. The guards at the gate were just about to drive him away, but I had Steward Liu open the gates. I didn't go out. I just stood by the second-floor window, quietly watching him. When Linhao saw the gates open, he thought I'd softened and stumbled forward, trying to rush inside, but he was firmly blocked by the guards. He looked up and saw me by the window. I was dressed in a magnificent palace gown, my makeup exquisite, my expression calm. Just like that, separated by a courtyard, we gazed at each other from afar. In his eyes was frantic pleading and regret. In my eyes was boundless calm and detachment. Lord Lin, I spoke, my voice not loud, but clearly reaching his ears. Have you made enough of a scene? Yangqing, he reached out his hand, as if trying to grasp something. Listen to my explanation. No need, I interrupted him. There has long been nothing left to say between us. Your actions today are simply asking for humiliation. For the sake of our past as husband and wife, I'll give you a word of advice. Just be your early Yanin properly and don't come disturbing my life again. Otherwise, next time it won't be as simple as the prince's guards throwing you out. My voice was cold as frost. Also, don't say I am your wife again. After saying that, I didn't look at him again, turned around, and closed the window. From outside the window came his roar of utter despair. That sound, however, could no longer stir up even a single ripple in my heart. He had completely become the past in my life, an insignificant, even somewhat annoying past. 1 month later, I had my grand wedding. A magnificent procession stretched all the way from the County Princess Manor to Prince Zhao's manor. The spectacle was more than 10 times grander than when I first married into the Lin family. The people of the entire capital poured onto the streets, competing to catch a glimpse of this grand wedding. Wearing a phoenix crown and clad in ceremonial robes, I sat in the magnificent sedan chair, listening to the deafening gongs and drums and the cheers of blessing outside. My heart was completely at peace. I knew that this time I had married stability. In front of Prince Zhao's manor, Yangqing, dressed in bright red wedding robes, looked handsome and distinguished as he stood there smiling and waiting for me. The moment he led me out of the sedan, I saw his eyes were filled with tenderness and treasuring. Yangqing, I am here to marry you. My heart at this moment completely settled down. Life after marriage was simple and warm. Yangqing was a wonderful man. He respected me, valued me, and loved me. He never interfered with my interests, supported me in picking up medicine again, and even specially set up a medicine room for me in the manor. He would play chess with me, read with me, and tend to the flowers with me. He would tell me interesting stories from the court, and when I was tired, he would gently massage my shoulders for me. Under his loving care, I gradually found my old self again, the one who was bright and loved to laugh. I became the princess consort of Prince Zhao, the envy of every woman in the capital. As for Linhao, he completely disappeared from the public eye. I heard that after my wedding, he fell seriously ill and almost didn't make it. After he recovered, he resigned from his post, locked himself inside the Earl's residence, and never saw outsiders again. The Earl of Yan'an's residence also fell into complete decline. 2 years later, on the day of the first snow, Prince Zhao and I took our son, who had just turned 1, to the palace for a banquet. The carriage stopped suddenly when it reached a somewhat run-down street corner. Your Highnesses, there is someone blocking the road ahead, a guard reported. Yangqing frowned and was just about to speak, but I lifted the curtain and looked out. I saw a man wearing tattered cotton clothes, his figure stooped, kneeling in the snow. He raised his head, revealing a worn, aged face, yet one that was still vaguely familiar. It was Linhao. He looked 20 years older than his actual age. When he saw me, a look of wild desperation burst from his eyes, and he began to bow desperately. Your Highness, please save my mother. My mother is sick. She is not going to make it. Please save her. His voice was hoarse and humble. Beside me, Yangqing's face darkened and he held my hand protectively. Yangqing, we can keep going. You don't owe him anything. I looked at Linhao kneeling in the snow, and for a moment, I saw not the man who had betrayed me, but a broken soul who had lost everything. I thought of Madame Zhu, who despite her harsh words, had raised a son and built a family. I thought of the medical oath my grandfather had taught me, that a healer's hands should save lives, not choose who deserves saving based on personal grievances. I took a deep breath and squeezed Yangqing's hand. Wait. Yangqing looked at me with concern. Yangqing, you don't have to do this. I know, I said softly, but I want to. I stepped out of the carriage, and immediately a palace maid rushed to hold an umbrella over my head to shield me from the falling snow. I walked toward Linhao, and he looked up at me with eyes full of desperate hope mixed with shame. Your Highness, I know I have no right to ask, but my mother, she's all I have left. Please, I'm begging you. I stood before him, looking down at this man who once held all the power in our marriage, now reduced to begging in the snow. For a moment, I felt nothing but a strange sense of peace. The anger, the hurt, the bitterness, they had all faded away over these 2 years of happiness. "Stand up," I said quietly. Linhao looked at me in disbelief. "Your Highness." I said, "Stand up. It's undignified for a former earl to grovel in the street like this." He struggled to his feet, his legs shaking from kneeling in the cold. I turned to one of my guards. "Go to the Earl of Yannan's residence and bring Madame Zhu to my manor. Carefully. Make sure she's warm during the journey." The guard bowed and immediately set off. Linhao stared at me, tears streaming down his weathered face. "Your Highness, I don't understand. After everything I did to you, why would you?" I looked at him calmly. "Because I am not you, Linhao. You chose to abandon your vows and your integrity for fleeting passion. I choose to honor the teachings of my grandfather, that medicine knows no grudges, and a life is a life." I paused, then continued. "I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this because Madame Zhu, despite her faults, is still a mother who is suffering. And I'm doing this because my son," I glanced back at the carriage where my child sat safe and warm, "will one day ask me what kind of person his mother was. I want to be able to tell him that I chose mercy over vengeance, compassion over cruelty." Linhao fell to his knees again, this time not in desperation but in overwhelming gratitude. "Thank you, Your Highness. Thank you. I spent these 2 years drowning in regret, wishing I could go back and change everything. I threw away a priceless treasure for nothing. I destroyed my family for a moment of foolishness. I don't ask for your forgiveness, I don't deserve it. But thank you for being the person I could never be." I looked at him one more time. "Linhao, your mother will receive the best care I can provide. But after this, we are truly done. No more coming to my gates, no more blocking my path. You live your life, and I'll live mine. Do you understand?" He nodded vigorously, unable to speak through his tears. I turned back to the carriage where Yangqing was watching with an expression of quiet admiration. As I climbed back in, he took my hand and brought it to his lips. "You continue to amaze me," he said softly. "That was incredibly gracious of you." I settled beside him, pulling our son into my lap. My grandfather used to say that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. I let go of my anger a long time ago. Helping his mother doesn't diminish my happiness or validate his choices. It simply means I choose to be better. The carriage began moving again, and through the window, I watched Linhao still kneeling in the snow, growing smaller in the distance. There was no triumph in my heart, no sense of superiority, just peace. Just the quiet satisfaction of knowing I had chosen the path of compassion. When we arrived at my manor later that evening, after the palace banquet, Madame Zhu had already been brought in and settled in a guest room. I went to examine her immediately. She was indeed very ill, a severe lung infection that had been neglected for too long. Her eyes widened when she saw me enter, and she tried to sit up. "Princess Consort, I don't deserve your kindness. I was so cruel to you. So unjust." I gently pressed her back down. "Save your strength, Madame Zhu. You need to rest." Tears rolled down her aged cheeks. I was a fool. I pushed my son to destroy the best thing that ever happened to our family. I prioritized status and bloodline over character and virtue. And I lost everything. I began preparing medicine, measuring out herbs with practiced precision. "What's done is done, Madame Zhu. The past cannot be changed, but you can still have a future if you fight this illness." Over the next 2 weeks, I personally oversaw her care. I prepared special remedies, adjusted her diet, and monitored her progress. Yangqing never questioned my decision, instead supporting me fully and even visiting Madame Zhu himself to ensure she had everything she needed. His kindness in this matter made me love him even more. Slowly, Madame Zhu began to recover. Her fever broke, her breathing eased, and color returned to her face. One afternoon, as I was checking her pulse, she grasped my hand weakly. "Princess Consort Yangqing, may I speak plainly?" "Of course." I spent 2 years watching my son destroy himself with regret. I spent 2 years living in poverty and disgrace, reaping what I had sown. But these past 2 weeks, being shown kindness I don't deserve, have taught me more than all those years of suffering. You could have let me die. No one would have blamed you. Instead, you showed me what true nobility looks like. She paused, catching her breath. It's not about titles or bloodlines or grand estates. It's about character. It's about choosing compassion even when you have every right to choose vengeance. My son let you go, and in doing so, he lost the most precious thing he ever had. But your mercy has saved not just my life, but perhaps his soul. He came to visit yesterday, and for the first time in 2 years, I saw something other than despair in his eyes. I saw hope that maybe, just maybe, he could learn to be a better man. I squeezed her hand gently. Everyone deserves a chance to grow, Madame Zhu. Even those who have made terrible mistakes. 3 weeks after that snowy day, Madame Zhu was well enough to return home. Before she left, she bowed deeply to me, tears streaming down her face. I will pray for your happiness every day for the rest of my life, Princess Consort. Thank you for showing this old foolish woman what grace truly means. After she left, Yangqing found me in the garden, watching the early spring flowers beginning to bloom. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder. You know the whole capital is talking about what you did, don't you? I leaned back against him. Let them talk. They are calling you the merciful princess, the compassionate consort. Some of the noble ladies are saying you've set a new standard for grace and virtue that they can never hope to match. I laughed softly. I didn't do it for praise or reputation. I did it because it was right. I know, he said, turning me around to face him. That's exactly why I love you. You don't perform kindness for an audience. You simply are kind, even when no one is watching, even when the recipient doesn't deserve it. He paused, his expression growing more serious. The emperor heard about it too. He was so moved that he's planning to officially commend you at the next court session. He says you embody the very best of what it means to be part of the royal family. I shook my head with a small smile. All I did was practice the medicine my grandfather taught me and follow the values my parents instilled in me. If that makes me worthy of commendation, then the praise belongs to them, not to me. That night, as I tucked my son into bed, he looked up at me with his father's intelligent eyes. Mama, the servants say you saved someone who was mean to you. Why? I stroked his soft hair. Because, my little treasure, being kind to people who are kind to you is easy. Being kind to people who have hurt you, that's when kindness truly matters. That's when it has the power to change things, to heal things, to make the world a little bit better. He thought about this seriously, then nodded. I want to be like that too, Mama. My heart swelled with love and pride. Then you already are, my son. Then you already are. Months passed, and life continued in its gentle, joyful rhythm. I heard through various channels that Linhao had finally begun to rebuild his life. He wasn't drinking anymore. He had taken a modest position as a military instructor, teaching young soldiers. He would never regain his former glory, but he had found a kind of peace in honest work and simple living. Madame Zhu had opened a small embroidery shop, using skills she had learned as a young woman before marrying into nobility. She was, by all accounts, kind to her customers and fair in her dealings. The harsh, critical woman I had known was gone, replaced by someone humbled and gentled by hardship and unexpected grace. One day, nearly a year after that snowy encounter, a package arrived at my manor. Inside was an exquisite piece of embroidery, a scene of flowering plum blossoms in the snow, with a small card that read, "To Princess Consort Zhao, with eternal gratitude. May your kindness bloom forever like these winter flowers. From Madame Zhu." I hung it in my study, not as a trophy of my magnanimity, but as a reminder that everyone carries the capacity for change, for growth, for redemption. That evening, as Yangqing and I sat together watching our son play with his toys, he asked me, "Do you ever regret it? Being merciful to them?" I thought about it carefully before answering. No, not even for a moment. You see, if I had turned away, If I had let bitterness guide my choices, I would have become smaller somehow, less than who I want to be. Mercy didn't diminish me. It expanded me. It freed me from the last chains of that old life. I looked at my husband, at my son, at the beautiful home we had built together. This life, this happiness, it's not lessened by showing compassion to those who wronged me. If anything, it's richer for it. Because I know that my joy isn't built on anyone else's suffering. It's built on love, on honor, and on the choice to be better every single day. Yangqing pulled me close and kissed my forehead. I fall in love with you more deeply every day, Yangqing. Not just for your beauty or your intelligence, but for your tremendous heart. 2 years later, on the anniversary of that snowy day, I received word that Madame Zhu had passed away peacefully in her sleep. She had lived 3 good years after her illness, years she had filled with kindness and honest work. Linhao sent a simple message: "Thank you for giving my mother the gift of time and the chance to become someone she could be proud of. I will carry the lesson of your mercy for the rest of my life." I attended the funeral, despite Yangqing's concern that it might be too difficult. But it wasn't difficult at all. I paid my respects to a woman who had learned and grown and changed. I looked at Linhao across the mourning hall, and we exchanged a brief nod. There was no lingering attachment, no unfinished business. Just 2 people who had once been married, whose lives had diverged onto vastly different paths, acknowledging each other's existence with quiet respect. As I left the funeral, I felt a profound sense of completion. The circle was closed. The story was finished. And I had ended it not with bitterness or revenge, but with grace. When I returned home, my son, now 4 years old, ran to greet me. "Mama, you're back." I scooped him up, feeling his warm weight in my arms, breathing in his sweet child scent. "I'm back, my treasure. And I'm never leaving again." That night, as I stood on the balcony of our manor, looking out at the capital city lights twinkling like earthbound stars, Yangqing joined me. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "I'm thinking about how life is strange and surprising. I'm thinking about how the worst thing that ever happened to me led me to the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm thinking about how choosing mercy over vengeance didn't make me weak. It made me strong." I turned to face him, this wonderful man who had shown me what true partnership looks like. I'm thinking that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, with exactly who I'm supposed to be with, and I wouldn't change a single thing. He wrapped me in his arms, and we stood there together, watching the night, secure in our love and our choices. The past was behind us, forgiven but not forgotten. The future stretched ahead, bright with possibility. And in this present moment, I was completely, perfectly, joyfully at peace. This is the best ending, not because I won or because Linhao lost, but because I chose to let compassion guide me, and in doing so, I became the woman I always wanted to be. The woman my son could be proud of. The woman I could see in the mirror without regret. The Princess Consort Zhao, yes, but more importantly, simply Yangqing, a healer, a wife, a mother, a woman who chose mercy and found that mercy, in the end, had healed her most of all. If you enjoyed this story of forgiveness and growth, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more meaningful stories. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think showing mercy to those who wronged you is strength or weakness? We'd love to hear your perspective. Until next time, remember that the greatest power we have is the power to choose who we become in the face of adversity. Choose wisely, choose kindly, and choose to be the person your future self will be proud of.